It means you have to adapt yourself to a personality. It's very, very interesting. She's quite character.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Dadnormous. I'm happy to be here with my friend Thibault Chêne from Paris, from outside Paris. Good to see you, my friend. As we've been saying, this is a fun opportunity for us to speak only about being a dad. You and I speak all the time about work and thinking, and now we get to just focus on this for a few moments, which I'm really enjoying. So thank you for agreeing to be part of the show today.
Thank you for inviting me. That's a real pleasure to talk with you about the one critical thing in life, family. You know, that's essential.
That's great.
Important.
Absolutely. And so Thibault, I'm going to give you, just feel free to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and who you are as a dad today in 2020.
Okay, so I'm a French guy, born in Paris. I'm a consultant for something like 20 years. I met my wife something like 20 years too, and we have 3 kids, 14, 11, and 8. One guy, Hippolyte, is 14, and 2 girls, Faustine and Léonie. Faustine is 11 and Léonie is 8. I mean, I don't know where I am as a dad. What I know is that I've been through a lot since we had Hippolyte 14 years ago, and I think I've changed my mind a lot toward being a dad. I think today I'm much more in kind of building a relationship with each of them than before. I thought being a dad was being about setting a frame, giving rules, and making them apply. You know, very follow my orders, dad. And hopefully we had Léonie, which is our last one, which is the 3rd kid in the family, and she destroyed approximately everything about my view about being a dad.
How's that? How is that?
She's very free. She has no. It's if she think about something, she will tell it to you instantly. So she's very spontaneous, meaning she expresses herself in much more than the 2, a sister and a brother. So it means you have to adapt yourself to a personality. It's very, very interesting. She's quite character. So it means that if I try to be in the rule things with her, it won't fit. I think it will break something. The main concern, how can I help her to grow without breaking anything, and helping her to understand that you can't make whatever you want whenever you want it to be done in life. You have to follow some rules. Sometimes you have to stick to not normality, but sometimes people expect some things from you, so you have to give it to them. So how can I help her to be herself, but to be able to interact with people? So that's crazy. See, I really changed my view of being a dad in the last 5 years, I guess. It helped me a lot with Hippolyte, saying we have a teenager home. Having a boy as a teenager home is something sometimes hard. And changing my mind toward being a dad helped me a lot in building a relationship with my son. So it's really helpful to have that little girl checking everything, checking the rules, checking me, to have a better understanding of how I can be a better dad with the 3 of them.
So if you think back 15 or so years ago, when you first learned you were going to be a dad, can you take us back to 2005 or so, and the first news that you first learned that you were going to be a dad, and where you were in your life and what you felt as a person, what you felt at that moment, your feelings about what was going to happen?
Well, it was really special to me because I was in a moment in my career where I decided to stop being a consultant and try to be a lawyer. So I've stopped working. I go back to the college, to a law school college, and I was about I was 30 years old. That's it, almost. And Saturday evening, we were at my wife's dad's home, and I had work all day long on a very tough lecture I had for the law school. And I spent my whole day in a room working. And in the evening, I finally stopped and joined my wife, and she told me that she was pregnant. It was something very crazy to me because I wanted deeply to be a dad. I really wanted to have kids and not too old. So I've already told her I'd like to have a kid soon. But the day it was true, it's something I was deeply shaken by the news. And it's something that I can see it in my mind again. It's still there with me. And the thing that is weird is that I prepared the law school. The final day of the exams, Hippolyte is born. I have my last exams on the Friday evening, and he's born on Saturday evening or something like that. So, and I've told Émilie before, you can't have the baby before I have finished my exams. Otherwise, I won't be able to be at the hospital with you. So you do not have Hippolyte before. And the day after he was there, it was incredible. He was supposed to arrive something like 2 weeks later, but he's an early comer, he's always in advance.
So when you think back to that time, if you could take Thibault 2020 and go back to that time and give yourself some advice that would have helped you along the path over the last 15 years, what advice would you give 2005 Thibault?
Relax. Be cool. Everything's going to be fine. I mean, yeah, and I was thinking about our conversation a few minutes ago, and I said, finally, at the end of the day, what is it about? And that relationship thing is very enlightening for me because it's all about the relationship you want to build with someone you don't know before. And in fact, the thing is that you can't taught to someone how to be a dad or a mom, but we're talking about being a dad. So you can't taught someone, that's the most important thing in life, and you can't be taught how to be a dad. There is no lessons. You can buy books, okay, it's theory. It's theory. You need to experience things to understand what is it to be a dad. And if I had understood before that in the end of the day, the best way to help a kid grow is to build a strong relationship with him or with her and to make him understand why it's important to follow this rule or to do things like this, or maybe try something and see if it's, to understand what is very important, and you can't let things happen how they want to experience things. Let's say on drugs, I won't say to my kids, go do your own experience, try it, and we'll see. No, on drugs, you said no, this is kind of rule. But on so many other things, you can say, okay, try, and see what happens. Yeah, be cool, relax, talk to them.
Yeah, it's interesting because that seems to be a theme, right? I think when we first hear the words and learn the news, there's you said it was like a shocking or jarring. And I think that when we realize that our whole world is shifting in that moment, and to a wonderful thing, it's clear to me that with few exceptions, no one is ever really prepared for this, and
no.
And what I said recently is as you said, there's no book, there's no manual, right? And if you were given a manual on how to be a dad in 2005, it would be obsolete 10 times over by now. So
yeah, and maybe let's say it would have been the best book in the world for Hippolyte. It would not have been a good book for Faustine,
sure,
nor for Léonie, because they are individuals and they are not the same, and they have so many differences in their way to be, way to express themselves, I can't not manage, but I can interact with each of them in the same way. I have to adapt myself to their personalities and the way they can learn things, the way they will accept the feedback.
That's a great point, because you're talking about the context of each child individually. So we speak about dad being a dad on this show, and it's so individual. So even if you're the same person, but you're not the same dad as each of your kids experience you. So that's a great point to bring up, is that it's definitely individual. And I see this oftentimes as we've spoken. I see the opportunity you have to engage in different ways. There's always this belief that the youngest kids have it the easiest because the parents are kind of like worn out and they have more flexibility and they're more relaxed, and they let things kind of flow a bit more. And perhaps that's part of the reason why your youngest is the way she is, because you're a different dad for her than you were for Émilie or for Faustine. So that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, maybe if I had to resume what is it to be a dad, it's to be able to adapt to each one of your kids. I mean, and yes, maybe I'm a little bit more cool with Léonie, but it's also that I have so much more perspectives about what it means to and what is important to me in her education, what I want her to learn, and what is very important that I want to give her as a frame to grow, and all the space in between for her to be free. And yes, for sure, Hippolyte still has the not worst, but the hardest role to play is I'm learning to be a dad with him each and every day. I've never been a dad of a teenager before. So tomorrow, I don't know what he can invent or try new and how I will react. So it's always difficult because I'm trying to evolve, to have a new perspectives on being a dad. And in the same time, I don't know what he will do tomorrow. So I'm still learning each and every day. But the thing that is very nice is that the more he grows, the more we can talk, and the more we learn together, not one against the other. You see what I mean? It's not me imposing things or telling him what to do. We discuss a lot more, and this is very interesting. This is the most interesting part of being a dad, I guess, so far.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's learning every day, and I think part of it too is even if you were given an instruction manual when he was born, you're not the same person either. So growing and changing, you're growing and changing, and those places where you come together for conversation or for really connection, that's a evolving reality that takes a lot of presence and it takes a lot of awareness to realize that you're both these moving targets, right? It's like you're growing in your way, he's growing in his way, your family is growing in their way. So how do you feel as you look back on the 15 years with your son? How do you think you would approach your daughters differently when they're 15 years old, if you think about that now?
Oh, that's a tough question. Because on top of what we said before, there's the totally unfair and not politically correct thing about the difference between a boy and a girl. I mean, if Hippolyte wants to go to a party with his friends, I'm quite okay. I mean, he's 15. I trust him. I'm not worried, not that much.
It's a
for the girls, 15 starts to be a kind of danger zone. So it doesn't mean I won't say yes. But maybe that's the thing I have learned with Hippolyte is I'm much more aware of my own limits. So I will try to manage that daughter relation issue about you're a girl, I want you to be careful. I will be careful for you, and I won't say okay for the parties and things like that, and that's something that I still have to adjust myself with that. It's not so comfortable.
You're on the precipice of it now with your middle daughter approaching teenager soon.
Yes, she's 11, so it's and she will be 12 by the end of the year. So it's approaching, and at the same time, my biggest chance that she's so well home, she doesn't have to go to her friends that much. So that's okay. We will see in 3 years. I think of course it will not be the same. So it will evolve, and I had to go with her to the party, to go to the friend's home, because we are we live in the countryside. So if you want to go to a party, you have to have a car. Basically, if you want to go somewhere, you need a car. So I will have to bring her there by car and take her home. But I think, and it's a lesson that my dad taught me, if you want your kids to be safe, you also have to make some sacrifices, like you go to get back them home after a party. If you have to go at 1 in the morning, you go at 1 in the morning. If it's 2, it's 2. You're dad. You are responsible of them. So you assume being a dad. I have had that education from my dad. So, I mean, it's obvious to me. And
being a dad isn't a static reality, right? It's a constantly evolving. We're trying to learn, we're trying to listen and adapt ourselves and grow. And if you just mentioned your dad, if you think about the legacy that you're living now, you're living your dad's legacy now, your children are living your legacy, they're living the generations before. When they're older, what would you like them to remember about you now? When they talk about their childhood and they talk about being 15, 11, 8, and they say, they're talking about dad, how do you want them to remember this time?
How many answers can I give you? No, I think the most important is that I love them. And on top of that, I hope that they will remember that being hard at work is important, and loving what you do and doing what you love is very important. And I hope that I can give them that that will to do something they love and to love what we do. You can't always love what you do, and you can't always do what you love, but sometimes you can just manage to put these things together and be happy in your life. And it's also something that you decide. You can decide to love what you do, even if it's not the funniest thing. And it's something I try to tell them from a professional point of view. Say, I have a tremendous luck. I love my job, but I don't love everything in my job, but I try to love everything I do in my job. But first of all, I want them to remember that their dad loved them a lot.
That's great. You mentioned an interesting point, which is trying to find, at least strive for a life that you love and that you feel fulfilled pursuing. And I think that's an important lesson. You and I have had many conversations about this, and I've been very fortunate to be able to share some work that I love with you all over the world. So, we have a unique history, you and I, about this. When it comes to the kids and the changes in generation, and frankly, dealing with this COVID reality that we all have around the world, it's changing so many things. And when you think about the opportunity, I'll use that word specifically, the opportunities that have come out of this time of quarantine and this pandemic, what do you think are some opportunities, if you want to take your mindset to that place, that you hope your kids will take from this time and learn from and grow from as they go forward in their lives following this pandemic?
That's a good question. The lockdown period we had here at home, 5 of us, it was a very, very nice time we had together. Um, Sometimes it feels weird because we were stuck home, but we have that chance living in the countryside. We have a garden, big garden. We have some space for us in the house. So I think the thing they can get from that, the real importance of having close relationship with your family and friends. I think with the family, because we built strong bonds during that 3 months period of time altogether. We've never been so close together for that long. I mean, in France, it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Sure.
In the summertime, but 3 months, never. You're never 3 months with your kids and your wife from morning till evening. I mean, never.
So what do you want them to learn from this? Any other lessons that you want them to take away from this as they go forward, even just in the near future, like in the next year or two? When they look back on this, do you want them to learn something from this time? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah, I think also not to the importance of having still relationships with your friends. How can you maintain strong relationships with other people than your family when you're locked down? You know, on who you can rely when things go wrong or are not going in the normal way. You see what I mean? It's everything stopped in France in 24 hours. On Sunday, the president said in 24 hours we close everything, and it has been done. I mean, in 24 hours, every shop closed, every restaurant closed, everything closed. And on a scale, I don't know if you had the same in the US, but everything was stopped in 24 hours. It's something very weird because you go outside and there is nobody in the streets. No plane, no traffic on the road, nothing. No car, no plane, anything. The birds, the bees, and that's all in the countryside. Very impressive. And in the same time, we have some really tremendous ways of communicating with people around the world. We are talking, you're in New York, I'm near Paris, and we have that conversation now, and we had the same during the lockdown, and they can have the same with their friends. And it's very important to be able to maintain the link with your buddies when you're not alone, but almost alone home in that kind of thing. So understanding that family is key, but friends are too. And you have to build close bonds with your friends if you want that kind of relationship to last. Obviously, it's much more important for Hippolyte because he's 14, almost 15. So friends are very, very important when you're a teenager.
It shows also that you have to, work a little bit for it. You have to reach out, you have to set up a Zoom, it's not like you're going to be situationally, adjacent at school, or you don't have these opportunities on the football field or someplace. You have to reach out. You have to make some effort to do this, which I think is interesting. Also, I think adaptability and agility in communication and in relationships is an interesting lesson to take away that you mentioned. So,
and maybe the last thing for the one other lesson on the not professional but work side of the thing is that it's not because you're home that you don't have to work. And on that part of the things, it was very interesting to see how they dealt with the homeworks. And we had everything from we have to push to we have to stop.
Right.
The last one, we had to push her, we had to be with her for 3-4 hours a day on the homework and basically doing school at home.
Right.
And for Faustine, we had nothing to do but stop her working for a few hours a day, saying, okay, you've done enough. Now you have to stop and do something else.
Okay.
And Hippolyte was the kind of balanced guy, going in the garden, having some house gardening and with the family, and working a few hours a day just to maintain the scores at school. But it's very interesting to see how they deal with the homework and the involvement in their own um, project, if I can call that a project. But very interesting to see how they dealt with the homeworks and the way they see school, not being in school, and how they do things. Yeah.
It's interesting. As you look at this, can you think back to your childhood and something that you learned as a child from your dad that you have adapted now as a dad yourself? Is there something that you learned that you think that you modify a little bit and you do things a bit differently? How does anything come to mind when you think about that?
The first thing is that if you want to do something, do it good. Do it till the end. If you start something, you go to the end. You deliver. You commit yourself to make things good. If you can on the first try, if not, that's not a problem. Do it again.
Okay.
But if you want to do something, do it good. Very good.
And over the last 15 years, 15, 11, 8 years with your kids, if you had an opportunity to do something over, a mistake that you made or something you would like to improve since you've become a father, does anything come to mind for you?
Oh, do we have 4 hours? No, I mean, lots of things. Maybe it's the more important things, not trying to educate them in the way I would have liked to be educated. They are not me. So my dreams are my dreams, and the dreams I was not able to pursue, I have to be okay with that and not trying to make them pursue them instead of me.
That's an incredible point. Thank you for sharing that. That's a key point.
Welcome.
You are you and your dreams are yours. And
Yeah.
respect the fact that they're individuals and we can help guide them in the big things and small things, but their life is their decision.
Yeah, and Hippolyte, you've seen him in New York, and he's one of my friend of mine. When he saw Hippolyte younger, I said, "Oh, it's mini you."
Yeah.
And you know how he looks like me, and we are very close physically speaking. And sometimes it's difficult to keep that in mind. He's not me. He has to find his own path, his own patience, his own way of doing things. But we're so close that sometimes I have some trouble keeping this in mind. So I'm trying to give him some space to imagine, to define, to try things, and to define his future. Yeah, it's
important. Yeah, it's an important exercise for us to go through too, because it's not like we flip a switch and it just is that way. It takes work every day to remind ourselves that this is their decision. We can help them and we can set boundaries that are healthy, and we can give them the space and the support to to be who they want to be and to make changes and adapt. We've all adapted along our paths as well.
Yeah.
So if you zoom out and you zoom out to, let's say, 2040, you have a 35-year-old son, 31-year-old daughter, and a 28-year-old youngest, and you're in your 60s, and if you think about that time, if you can imagine 20 years into the future, and what do you hope that they'll think about you as a dad in 20 years, when maybe they'll have their own families? What do you want your legacy to be when they speak about you to their kids?
Well, that's not an easy one. It's always the same. I think one of the most important things that they realize how it can be difficult to maintain the right balance between the career and the family. How can you, because as kids, and I understand it, the more they have of you, of me, of their dad, of their mom, the more they want.
Sure.
And it's not always easy or possible to say, okay, you know, sometimes we have work to do, we have our own patients, our own hobbies, our own space. I need time with my wife, I need time with myself, I need time with my friends, and I try to have the right balance between my professional life, my own needs and their needs. And I hope they will remember that I was there. And in the present time, I mean, following the last weeks of the lockdown, we are locked out now in France, waiting for the next wave. But things are still not like before. So meaning I'm still not every day in Paris. And so I try to balance the time I have with them, taking care of things home, but taking care also of Moonspark, my company with my friends, and trying to ensure that everything will be okay in the future for the kids, for the company, for me, for my wife, for everything. So it's quite a lot, but I'm not sure that they can imagine what is it for a dad to try to deal with everything at the same time.
Juggle all of.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, juggling with so many balls at the same time. It's okay. I will miss one. Which one? And so in 20 years, if they can realize what it means to struggle with all this and say, okay, thank you, Dad, I will be happy. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Thank you. So we're going to wrap up in a little bit. If you were to give some advice based on your 15 years of being a dad, advice to other fathers, lessons that you've learned, advice to maybe people who just found out that they're expecting, what advice would you give? Like, what do you feel are important pieces of advice to share?
Maybe it would be try to build the more honest and open relationship you can with each of your kids. Try to see it as a real relationship, not a kind of hierarchical relationship you can have. And you know, it's a kind of job, but it's not a job. So it's how do you create peer-to-peer relationship, because I mean, we have a responsibility in raising our kids, but in the end, that's their life. So I'm always trying to define the right balance between my point of view and their will. And at the end of the day, they are building their future. So how can I try to guide them without imposing things? So it's that kind of balance that is, I think, yeah, try to find that balance between the frame and the freedom.
That's a great point. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I know you're super busy too. And I really appreciate you sharing with us today, Thibault. For those of you that are new, please subscribe. I'll link some other videos here. And if you have any questions or if you want to be part of a future episode, please send me a note below. Thank you very much. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Jonscott. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.